And let's talk about the Danimal, Dan Lanning, the Oregon Ducks, and what they do. I mean, you talk about teams foaming at the mouth. We talk about teams that have established themselves as talent identification evaluation. Bottom line, talent acquisition programs. Drew, I really just kind of want to start on the high school side because I feel like the portal side is a whole different type of conversation. They're losing a lot. They're coming off a year where they were 13-0 at one point before they ran in that buzzsaw in Ohio State. Tell us what you like about Oregon and what they've done to continue to build on what they've done the last couple of years.
A step back is likely. And I know you're going to tell me you like a lot of what they got in the transfer portal. Oregon is losing 18 starters. All right, 18 starters are out the way. 9 of those players are top 200 prospects on CBS Sports and the NFL draft ranking. So a lot is gone. The good news for Oregon is the long-term outlook of this program looks so promising, and that's because Dan Lanning continues to crush it on the recruiting trail. We're talking about back-to-back top 5 ranked recruiting classes. This 2025 group is a bit historic. 20 signees, all of them are considered blue chippers, so either 5 or 4-star prospects. That's only happened one other time in the 24/7 Sports era. That was back in 2013 that a school signed nothing but blue chippers. That was Lane Kiffin when he was at USC, and that class had like 12 players. So Dan Lanning continues to do it in terms of just acquiring talent, and he's doing it in all different pockets of the country, right? Oregon is in a very unique place. Cooper, you worked there when Mario Cristobal was there. You have to get creative. You have to kind of branch out. I think Oregon being in the Big Ten has allowed them to go into some other different areas of the country, more regional exposure, but they're getting guys to Oregon. Kids want to play there. I just do have some question marks about 2025 because, again, they have to replace a lot. And how about this? You know, Dan Lanning, since he arrived at Oregon, only 2 freshmen have started games for him as true freshmen. Only 2 of them. And both of that was in a bowl game after opt-outs, right? So you look at this recruiting class, top 5 group. I just don't know if any of these guys are going to be on the field right away because that hasn't been the MO for Dan Lanning at Oregon.
I think what's interesting about them, you know, we continue to talk about how do you marry the high school side up, how do you marry the portal side up. They're the only program that has a top 5 high school class and a top 5 portal class. And it's not like they have a mass quantity of guys that they've taken to the portal. They have the number 1 player in the country in Isaiah World that comes over, 30-plus starts from Nevada, 6'8", 300 pounds plus. He'll replace Josh Connerly. You think about Dylan Thieneman, the year that he had as a freshman just 2 years ago, 6 picks at Purdue, one of the best all-around safeties in the country. Emmanuel Pregnon, plug-and-play guy. Bear Alexander, even with all the off-field issues, he is one of the more talented defensive linemen in the transfer portal cycle. So they've just done a phenomenal job, Drew. And I think the biggest thing is he's taken Oregon, Dan Lanning that is, he's taken Oregon from a brand that is one of the strongest brands in college football to, I think, you know, I could be wrong, to one of the top 3 biggest brands in all of college football by what they've done from talent ID, development, and acquisition. They've been phenomenal over the last couple years, and it's going to be fascinating to see how much better they can get. The last thing that stands out for me on Oregon, they are the team with the best roster that has continued to be the most aggressive in the offseason. And I think that's really, really telling, not only from an acquisition standpoint, but the resources. They're abundant under Phil Knight, and a lot of people are going to talk about that, and they're going to say, well, they have this cash cow of money, and that's true. But at least they spend it really responsibly, and they're on the right guys. I think that really matters.
We haven't talked about Corian Moore. I think you talked about the guys. I think you had 2 freshman starters. I think that could be 3. Like, that could be 3. He is that incredible of a talent. I mean, thinking about him and Keelan Russell playing together in high school, I mean, I still joke with Keelan, like, how are you guys not playing together at the same level? You have such a strong connection. DeCorian is incredible. Naeem Offord, 5-star cornerback coming in. You got Zach Staskowski along the offensive line. You got Trey McNutt in the secondary. A guy that I love is running back De'Aaron Hill. Just so many playmakers in this class that are going to come in. So, yes, they are losing a lot, but they are bringing in so much talent. Zaire Addison would have loved to have him in the Navy All-American Bowl, but he ended up getting to Oregon sooner rather than later. And then cornerback Dorian Brew, another super talented kid. So this class is loaded. Could have been a little better if they kept your guy Deshaun Brame, Dallas Wilson. It could have been just a little bit better. But special group heading to Eugene.
Tom, how do you describe like Dan Lanning and his staff, especially when you get closer to National Signing Day and it's guys like Naeem Offert, right? You're trying to figure out where they're going to go from Birmingham, Alabama, and a guy that's going to play his ball in Eugene. How would you describe them as a program from a strict recruiting standpoint?
You brought up earlier when we were talking about replacing Nick Saban and Kirby Smart as like the next elite head coach recruiter. Steve Sarkisian was a great one. Dan Lanning is that guy, and it is a no-brainer when you watch what his guys do. Marshall Mackow, Pat Biondo, that entire staff takes after their head coach, and they know. I remember Marcus Freeman when he first got to Notre Dame. He said, "I'm going to be the best recruiter in this building." Dan Lanning is that same way, and that's exactly what he preaches to his guys, and he backs it up every way. He is an elite evaluator. He's a great coach, and he is equally talented as a recruiter. He cares about the guys, and yes, it is nice having that cash cow behind you at Nike, but what he does, man, he trusts what they do in that building. They do things the right way. And you know what's crazy is like all of these elite prospects go out to Eugene. They don't need to, and they go and they camp, and they work out for those guys. That's special, man. That is hard to do in this day and age.
Drew, let me ask you. I talked a little bit about Jackson Arnold. I phrased it in a confidence meter type of deal. Just conversations that you and I have had, you're not so sure it's going to be Dante Moore. There's another talented guy there in Austin Novosad. Give me your feel or pulse just on that one position as they head into next season.
Well, they have arms, and Dan Lanning has done an excellent job of kind of building that quarterback room out. And I mean, they took two quarterbacks, or they tried to take two quarterbacks in the 2025 cycle. That didn't pan out. They bring Dante Moore in. It seems like Dan Lanning understands, hey, I have to get it right. So yeah, Dante Moore is here, started 5 games as a true freshman at UCLA, former 5-star prospect. But Austin Novosad, that's the dude that Will Stein, when he arrived from UTSA, he handpicked him out of Texas, a former longtime Baylor commit. I remember him throwing at Florida in advance of his junior season at Friday Night Lights. You want to talk about camps out there? A guy that has operated throughout his life in a spread offense. So yeah, I think if you're Oregon, since you are taking kind of a step back, a lot of new bodies there, I would let that quarterback competition go the distance. What do you gain by naming Dante Moore the starter right now? And from what I've heard, people around those buildings, people in personnel offices, a lot of people said, hey, if Austin Novosad, keep an eye on him. If he enters the transfer portal, he's going to be a coveted arm. So, I'm excited to see how that quarterback competition plays out. And the other thing on Oregon, right? We talked about Dan Lanning. Hey, they're losing all these guys. When you look at the projected 2 deep, and it's full of guys we ranked really high coming out of high school. A lot of them haven't played. Are they ready to go here in 2025? Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end, we saw more and more of him as the season progressed. That was our number 4 athlete in 2023. I think we're all on board on him. Aiden Breland, in the middle there, what does he look like? You said Bear Alexander comes in from USC. Jurian Dickey, former 5-star wide receiver. Yeah, you got Evan Stewart. You got DeCorian Moore. I think they need a big body, especially with Tez Johnson out. Ife Odebegwu, the cornerback out of Maryland. We loved him last cycle. Aaron Flowers, Dalen Austin. A lot of these guys that we really, really like, they just haven't played because Oregon's been so, upperclassmen heavy. Those guys are out, new waves in. Dan Lanning's going to have these guys ready to go.
We're going to find out how good we are at this job, right? I mean, all these guys are going to have to play. Guys, for more on Oregon, make sure to visit duckterritory.com.